Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Wahyu Ramadan and from Class B, English Literature 2019. So, on this time is a final assignment in the cultural theory course, and it has three question. And the first question is what does the material from this course? And my answer is so in this course the material what I acquired are from the cultural theory and an introduction by Philip Smith. So on these books being my reference of the do of this lecture during in this course. So there are many chapter that I learned that are is from the chapter 7 for structural term, chapter 8 culture, structure and agency. It means the three attempts at synthesis. Chapter 9 British cultural studies, and the chapter 10 the production and reception of culture. Chapter 11 culture as text, narrative and hermeneutics. And the last chapter is chapter 12 psychoanalytic approaches to culture and the self. So the various collection of the chapter above are that I learned from this course during the lecture. So the second question is what is the lesson learned from this course? Okay, my answer is lesson what I learned from from this lecturer is about the material is about different but relate each other. So I will explain to you what are learned before in this in each chapter. So in chapter 11 I take about explain about post-structuralism is the base understood of the restoration and being the result of the structuralism rather than as an opposing school of thought. Post-structuralism made extensive uses of the linguistics and textual models of the culture, almost same with the structuralism. So the post-structuralism thinking has attacked the humanist idea that the sovereigns should be the major focus of analyzing and advocated what is sometimes known as the death of the subjects. Structuralism and post-structuralism have some common agendas and is not equal claiming they're identical. Okay, so the next is chapter 8. On the chapter 8, what I learned is about synthesis. Synthesis is the combining of the constituent um, the element of the separate material or abstract entitized into the single or unified entity. The separating of any material, there are three material or three elements that include in the synthesis. So which is culture, next is structure, and the third is agency. So culture in here means the blending of the two or more cultural influences, acculturation. Acculturation can exchange having the features that result when group of individuals having different culture comes to introduce contact. The original cultures may alter by the group's main distincts. And then check chapter 9, the is about the British study. So the study of the British culture explain how politically it it is only on to focus on the potential to fight in the opposition subcultures. So the first to appreciate the potential of working class culture. So the British cultural studies turned to youth culture as a possibility, providing new forms of the opposition and social change. Next is the chapter 10. According of the chapter, in this chapter, as we can see, it refers to the phrase production of the culture is concerned with how the organization in which culture is produced and disseminated affect the nature of culture itself. So, yet there is a clear consensus on what is meant by this phrase based on the perspective. It is a focus on the ways in which the content of symbolic element of culture are shaped by the systems, and systems within they are created, distributed, evaluated, taught, and preserved. So it can be understood as the social process involved in the generation and circulation of the cultural forms, practices, values, and the shared understanding. So that is see also conscious. Okay, next is chapter 11. Chapter 11 is about it's a common place to observe that culture or social life is a text, and that is has to be interpreted for some perspective. However, this dictum is more axiomatic than for others, although it's central to the many forms of structuralism and post-structuralism. It had a little interest in the story as the bearer of the meaning. Rather, his primary concern with the way that concept could be plucked out of the narrative to uncover an underlying structure. So the another significant current in structuralism is however, has been concerned with investigation of narratives and how it's sustained by sequential organization of science. Okay, the next is the last chapter is chapter 12. So in this chapter, I know what I learned is about the relationship between cultural theory and the psychoanalytic theory in a complex one. So next, there are clear narratives in as far as about the social life as essentially um about meaning and emphasize the need or interpretation. So the relationship becomes turned to over themes. So the first um psychoanalysis. So it means the traditional form. So has tended to focus on the pathologies of the individual rather than collective phenomena. So the secondly is This is a tendency towards psychological and biological reductionism in much psychoanalytic though. It moves that have been made by some um, psychoanalytic thinkers. It refers to breaking down these barriers mark out one the major achievement and 20th century cultural theory. So this work has now reached a stage where it sometimes seems impossible to delineate certain psychoanalytic theories from the theory more broadly conceived. So this is the end of the second question. So the third question is what we gonna do after we learn or we know if this lecture of the cultural theory course. So my answer is we have must be proficient of knowledge of the next course and also be applied to everyday life on what is known during the cultural theory lecture. So, but strengthen more understanding by reading various books that refers to cultural theory, and we have to many learn of the many books on the library about this cultural theory. Okay, that's all for me. So thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.